go ahead and continue our availabilities for today. We're now joined by 3 of our NASCAR Camping World Truck Series drivers participating in the Active Pest Control 200 here at Atlanta Motor Speedway tomorrow. Please welcome Jordan Anderson, driver of the number 3 Bommarito Lucas Oil Chevrolet, Johnny Sauter, driver of the number 21 Allegiant Airlines Chevrolet, and Ben Rhodes, driver of the number 41 Alpha Energy Solutions Ford. Johnny, we'll start with you. Congrats on your win in Daytona. You're looking for back-to-back wins here for the start of the 2018 season. How you planning to do so?
We were just talking about that a second ago. This is a tough place. Obviously, the racetrack's going to go through quite the transition period. We ran really well here last year with our Allegiant Chevy, and I feel like with some of the setup stuff and, obviously through the course of the off-season, the stuff that you work on, aero, and just trying to make everything better, I feel good about it. So we'll obviously find out here in about an hour to see what we unload with for speed. But this is a place here where, you can go real fast real early, or you can try to be a little bit faster for the long haul. So I'm hoping to have a little bit of both, but this is fun nonetheless, and we'll be able to move around this place, which I think everybody as competitors enjoy. So just got to race hard and see what the day brings us.
Awesome. And Ben, you had a pretty big birthday earlier this week. You turned 21. What did you do to celebrate?
Well, I wouldn't really call it big. Still going to Chuck E. Cheese. No, we didn't do anything. I went to my local Italian spot in Louisville, Kentucky, and went out with my grandparents, my family. Like I was telling somebody else this week, as you guys know, whenever you're on the road, whenever you can be home and enjoy time with the family, that's what we do. So between mom, dad, and the grandparents there wasn't really any drinks. So maybe we'll save that to after this race if we can have a good finish.
Good deal. And you won last year in Vegas at a 1.5 mile track. Are you approaching this race similar to the way you guys approach Vegas?
In a way, actually, this truck that we brought here this weekend is Jasmine. It's the truck that we had at Homestead Miami Speedway. So that was a really good race for us, really strong performance. We're basically taking everything we learned from last season, a setup that we've been working on for a while on the 1.5 mile trucks and tracks, and looking to see if that'll work here at Atlanta. I think it's going to run really well. I know it's a fast truck, but it is a new Ford body, and hopefully this F-150 is fast. But we're putting all of our resources into it.
Awesome. And Jordan, it's been an exciting few weeks for you. You're running your own team. You had a solid finish in Daytona. Can you tell us a little bit about what the last few weeks have been like for you?
Crazy. It's Daytona was a huge blessing for us, a new team. We decided to start this up about a month and a half ago, and for us being a small team, we started out with 1 truck. We got another one. We're up to 4 trucks now. So Daytona was big for us because it kind of dictates how the rest of your season was going to go. So to be able to get off 2018 on a good foot was good for us. Top 10 finish, my first one ever. We've kind of been an underdog in the truck series now. The series has really become home for me, so we love being here. But for my guys, that was the biggest thing because we've had just the night before we came down here to Atlanta, we didn't go to bed. We worked throughout the entire night to get this truck ready. So, we love what we do. We love to be here every week. We're grateful to be here in the truck series. And hopefully, with us building this new team, we're going to continue to build up new trucks and run better. And hopefully, last week's a sign of what's else to come for us.
Great. Thank you. We'll go ahead and open it up to questions. Just raise your hand, and we'll get a mic over to you. Jerry?
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net and PRN. Jordan, we've traveled the roads together because we both drive to a lot of races. Can you talk about your journey to get to where you're at right now with this new team? And I mean, like I said, we pulled over in different truck stops, getting gas through the past few years. And how fulfilling is it to be here?
No, it's certainly fulfilling, and it's like I said earlier, it's a huge blessing for us, and it's a journey. That's what we always talk about. Everybody that follows me on Twitter and Snapchat, it's a journey that we're on. I mean, we're going to run here at Atlanta this week. We've only got 1 intermediate truck, so we've got to do what we did at Daytona last week, play our cards right and run and find that line between being aggressive and kind of pulling back and taking care of our truck. But we're going to race here in Atlanta tomorrow night. We're going to go home. We're going to work Sunday, work Monday, and we're going to leave up Tuesday morning and drive all the way. Me and my 3 guys, there's 4 of us on the team, and drive all the way to Las Vegas next week. So we didn't buy a single plane ticket last year for any of our races. So that's the biggest thing, is it's a big journey that we're on. We have a lot of crazy things happen on the road. We love what we do, and I've got a good core group of guys that they're racers. They love this sport. So last week it was big for me, but it was big for all the people that help our team and get us to this place, because this is something that we're trying to build this team up. We're running the Elmore Motors this year, so we're working hard to step up our on-track performance, but at the same time kind of stay true to where we were the past couple of years.
Also, real quick, you had disaster early last year with the truck. Having one truck, are you worried about that again this year?
Racing is that kind of sport. You take your chances and hope for a good outcome. But it's crazy. We crashed here at Atlanta last year, got spun out off of turn 4 here, and the truck dug into the grass, and it tore the front clip off that truck. And that was almost the end of our season last year. But looking back, it was amazing how that opened up the door to getting our Fueled by Fans program going. We had a crowd-funded truck for half of the season last year, and if it wasn't for the crash here, it wouldn't have opened up all the doors to have the fan support. So that's what I said. That was one of the first things I said when we got out of the truck at Daytona, was we're here because of the fans that supported this program and got us back to the racetrack. So it was cool to kind of give everybody that helped us last year a thank you as part of all their help to get us back on the racetrack.
Lee?
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. Jordan, can you tell me how you got the Bommarito Automotive Group? Because you're from South Carolina, not St. Louis. I was kind of wondering about that.
There is a Columbia, Missouri out there. It's just a different Columbia from Columbia, South Carolina. But it's actually cool looking back. It was 2016. We had raced out there. And every time we go to Iowa and St. Louis, we stay out at Kenny Wallace's shop and work on our truck in between races. And we were out there. We had raced at Iowa first and had come out to Kenny's place in Arnold, Missouri, and was working on the truck. And we had no sponsors for St. Louis. So I actually called Declan O'Neill and Chris Blair over at Gateway Motorsports Park. I said, hey, I'm here for the week. If you guys could use me to help sell some tickets, put me to work. And they actually had me come over to the racetrack on Tuesday and Wednesday that week. And I made some phone calls to some fans and sold some tickets and took some pictures around the racetrack. And the VP of the Bommarito Automotive Group was actually there that week, and I asked him for some sponsorship, and they came on as a very low sponsor kind of thing. They bought us 2 sets of tires that week. It was a huge help for us. It kept us going, and we just kind of kicked the relationship off there. So it's been neat to see how that's grown and evolved, because last year, 2017, the dually that we pull our hauler with pretty much everywhere. That's our home when we're on the road. The motor in it blew up, and I had reached out to John Bommarito and his group about some help, maybe a dually to use for the year or something, and his whole team stepped up and gave us a brand new 2016 GMC 3500 to pull our trailer with, and it's just been neat to see how the relationship's grown from there, and he stepped up this year to help our program grow. So every single partner that we have on our team has a neat story like that, and it all started at Gateway asking the people at the track for some introductions and help on sponsorship. So you never know, and that's what's so cool. Everybody that supports our program, there's a story on how we all got to meet and why it works.
Matt?
Matt Weaver, AutoWeek.com. One for Johnny and one for Jordan. For Johnny, when it comes time to eventually repave this place, which is probably pretty soon, would you provide the track any sort of input in terms of what aggregate to use or how to go about paving? Is there any thoughts about that?
I mean, I wouldn't have a clue. I mean, obviously, the drivers like this place because it's abrasive and it's wore out now. So I would, I don't know anything about asphalt. So, I'm sure that they would use something that's maybe similar to this, that maybe would wear tires out. I think that's what everybody likes about this. And we see it a lot at other racetracks get repaved. They just kind of take time to age, and maybe there's a process they can do to expedite that. I have no idea. But, yeah, that's a good question. I'm just not, I don't study aggregate and things like that. You know what I mean? I just don't have a clue.
And for Jordan, with a blue-collar team and doing things the way that you're doing things, how do you expect this new engine program to help you be able to make races, to be able to fund the program better than the system you guys had before with OEM engines?
Yeah, for sure. It's a big jump for us, because had we tried to do what we're doing now last year, we would have struggled a little bit more, I believe. The Elmore certainly does level the playing field, and NASCAR's done a great job with providing us the opportunity to do it. And it's great because the truck we ran in Daytona was a Toyota. We're in a Chevrolet this week, so had we not been able to run that motor in the different trucks, we couldn't afford to have done what we did last week. But I think you're going to see an increased step up in performance from the guys that ran 15th to 25th last year. I think you're going to hopefully see them jump up and compete more, because this does allow us to get something closer to what the bigger teams do and hopefully race with guys like Johnny and Benmore. But the Elmore is a big help for us as a small team. I blew 6 motors last year just simply because we bought older SP2 motors and would basically run them till they were wore out because that's what our budget would allow for. But the Elmore allows us we bought 2 new motors at the beginning of this year. They got a great program. They've got tuners here at the racetrack that help us with our stuff. So it allows us to check that box of things, differences between us and other teams. We can kind of scratch it off as the motor program. It'll level that playing field out. So it allows us to focus on, making our trucks better and things like that.
Are there any other questions? All the way in the back, yeah.
Doug Turnbull from PRN and WSB Radio. This is for Ben, since we've been leaving you out, since they handed it to us. I wanted to ask, this may seem like a really mundane question, but your truck numbers have gone I think it was either the 98 or the 13, and then 27 and 41 and then back, or vice versa. How does the team decide when to switch numbers in the year? Because on the outside, it doesn't look to us like it's an owner's points thing. Like, how do y'all decide that?
Well, the big thing is 2016 going to Thorsport Racing. I was the number 41. We went to that number because I'd had past history with that, and Duke Thorson allowed me to change to that. From 2015, I was the 88. 2014, I was the 41. So he allowed me to go back to the 41. Well, I changed in 2017 because Safe Light Auto Glass came on board as the sponsor, and their phone number was 800-800-2727. So it just kind of made sense for the sponsor. But since I'm no longer with Safe Light Auto Glass, now I went back to the 41. So we're 41's just kind of been the common number. It's just been my history and my foundation. So we just kind of went back to it, and it makes sense. I've got wins with that, just not in the truck series. So we'll see if we can improve that this year. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, thanks, guys, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
If I could have your attention here in the media center, we are now joined by Chase Elliott, driver of the number 9 NAPA Auto Parts Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. And of course, being from Dawsonville, Georgia, very popular around these parts. And so before we get started with your media availability today, Dustin here at the Speedway has something very special for you.
All right. Didn't make it here in time last week on Tuesday.
Should I be concerned?
No. Last week on Tuesday, it didn't make it in time with all the Lucky Charms we had. But the University of Georgia sent us
That's awesome.
A number,
yeah, very cool.
Number 9 for Chase.
Very cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So good luck this weekend.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. It's awesome.
It's a pretty cool deal. I mean, not only
Yeah.
you get the Georgia jersey, but I mean, you're here. Napa Auto Parts is here. You have Hooters. You have Kelly Blue Book, all located in
Yeah.
Atlanta. So you're a busy guy when you come here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. All of our, or not all, but the majority of our partners are based here in Atlanta. So good to have that kind of home connection with them, and good fit. So yeah, really neat. Thanks again to the folks at Atlanta for doing this for me. It's awesome. Big Georgia fan. So great to see.
Okay, let's open the floor up for questions. If you have a question for Chase, please raise your hand. We will get a wireless microphone to you. We'll start with Bob and then go to Matt.
Bob Hocker, CSPN. What was the best Lucky Charm that was sent, and did you have any qualms with them doing a promotion over the fact you hadn't won?
No, I didn't have any issues with it. It was, I feel like a nice gesture, more than anything. So, man, there were a lot of teddy bears. I felt like sent in a lot of St. Patrick Day, charm items sent in. So hard to pick one, but no, I thought it was I think it's a cool deal, and I appreciate everyone's support for jumping on board and being willing to support something like that. It's pretty cool.
Go next to Matt and then to Jeff.
Matt Weaver, AutoWeek.com. 2 questions for you. First one, I know that you're very partial to this racetrack for geographic reasons, but also just from a racer's standpoint. But when it comes time to repave this place or resurface it, which is probably inevitable, do you have any sort of suggestions or ideas when it comes to what aggregate they should use or how they should pave it, anything that would kind of bring this track back quicker?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, everybody says it's inevitable. I don't really know why. I've visited a lot of tracks over the years that have had the ability to patch and do good patchwork and kind of fix their problems, and still to this day haven't been paved. So I think if we're smart enough to do a lot of things, we ought to be smart enough to be able to patch some issues in the track and let it keep on riding.
And the other question, I don't know how much time you've spent around Spencer Davis, but he grew up in Dawsonville. You've raced against him a ton, made his Truck Series debut last week. Just what are your thoughts on Spencer and what he brings to the table?
Yeah, no, I think I don't know Spencer personally, but I have raced with him a lot, as you said, and he's always been a really good racer. I feel like he's always kind of overachieved with what he's had to work with, which is impressive. A lot of people don't do that. So I'm glad to see he's getting an opportunity in something that he deserves to be driving, and I expect him to do really well throughout the season. I don't think Daytona's a fair judge, but I think once we get to some other places, I expect him to do well, and nobody in here should be surprised if he has some good success. Yep.
We'll go to Jeff and then to Jacob.
Chase, Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. If you had to guess, what's your prediction for the inspection thing today? Like, are we going to see a bunch of teams waiting in a line? They're like, oh, you can't go out and qualify, or everybody going to get through no problem?
Well, we're supposed to have limited the inspection process by a lot, and what is it supposed to be? What, 90 seconds? Is that what it's supposed to be? Is that right? I see a lot of head nods. So, yeah, I mean, if everybody gets through in 90 seconds, we shouldn't have any issues, right?
Jacob?
Jacob Zillman, Race Chaser Online Performance Motorsports Network. Chase, I know restrictor plate tracks don't necessarily give a good feel for what we're going to see out of the new Camaro for the balance of the schedule. Here, Vegas, that's kind of the litmus test. How are you anticipating this going for the new car, and what are you expecting? I mean, I know this is one area where Chevy has worked a lot to try and close that gap.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it goes really well. I think that first off, I don't think it's really fair for us to show up here at Atlanta and everybody get a judgment on where we stack up here. This is our first go at it, as well as everybody else's. We saw other manufacturers come here last year, being their first week, and didn't necessarily fire off the best, but were the best before it was over with. So I think that you have to give it a little bit of time. You have to work through some of the things. That the bodies are different. That means you're going to see different numbers in the wind tunnel. That means your balance sheets and your sims that you work on the computer, all that stuff's going to be different. And I hope we hit it this weekend. Don't get me wrong. I'm not making an excuse. Either it'll be good or it won't. But I think that we have to work through some of the differences, and we've seen some of those differences today. No reason why we can't fix it, though, I don't think, and try to get it as good as we can, and hopefully better than the rest.
We'll go to the young lady there on the right.
Hi, Ashton Long from The Prowler. My question is, what advice do you have for young drivers going into this sport?
I think just stick with it. I think that that you're not always going to be faced with the best opportunities, or you could have situations where there's some uncertainty. I feel like as you move forward, to me, I think Alex Bowman has been a good kind of representation of that. He ran a couple years in a car that really had about a 0% chance of winning races, and found himself in the right position at the right time and taking over for Dale Jr. before it was all said and done. So I have a lot of respect for him in that sense, and I think he's a good example to look at.
Go next to Christian.
Christian Coley, frontstretch.com and the Motorsports News Source. Chase, my question is, there was a lot of speeding penalties last year. Can you talk to us about how you felt like that played an impact in the race last year, and how you think that it may play an impact on Sunday's race if it happens?
I don't think you'll see as many speeding penalties Sunday. As the year went along last year, NASCAR opened up the ability to look at pit road speeds throughout practice. I can't remember if we had that ability here last year or not, but this was also one of it was early on in the times where they were doubling the timing segments. So I think it was a little new to everyone. And I can't remember, if we didn't have the ability to look at it in practice, I think that was probably the reason why we had so many speeding penalties in the race. But something was definitely different. All that stuff doesn't just happen. When it's a consistent thing, there is something that has changed, right? And the teams miss. So I think we've been used to the added timing segments for a while now, and B, having having the ability to look at it in practice, you really have no excuse. If you're hitting your lights properly, obviously you can still make a mistake in speed, but no reason why the calculation shouldn't be proper.
We'll go to Nate, then to Bob, then to Jessica.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Chase, understanding why you want to caution waiting on evaluating where you guys might stack up until maybe a few races down the road. After the restructuring that Hendrick went through there during the offseason, is there a lot of anticipation to see where you stack up, and when do you think like that evaluation makes sense? Do you wait until 4 or 5 races after the West Coast swing, or?
Yeah, I think get through the West Coast swing. I mean, I think that and maybe even a little bit after that, because the thing about the West Coast swing is a lot of those cars are already prepared to go west. So things that we may learn this weekend might not have the ability to be applied to a race car that we're racing next weekend, because that car is pretty much done, and it's got to be driving west here early this week, right? So I think once you get back from there and you kind of evaluate where you are, hopefully you can put some of the things you've learned towards those weeks. But if it's bigger changes and things that you need days in the shop to do, you're not going to be able to make those changes until you get back. So, or at least some of the bigger ones. So we'll see. I think after the West Coast swing is a good time to evaluate. You might not get all the changes you want in by then, but a good time to look and see where you're at. Yeah. I mean, I think there's anticipation anyway. We want to. We want to do better. In general, our team wants to do better. A lot of change. I think there has potential to be a lot of positive things going on, and at the end of the day, we all want results, right? So you want to see the changes and the things that we've done to end up in positive results, and I think that we have all the pieces in place to do just that. It's just a matter of execution at this point, and going and putting all the pieces together and hope that they fall right.
Go next to Bob, then to Jessica.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Did you watch the rest of the Daytona 500, or were you too frustrated to watch? And also, did you have to do any apologizing or smoothing of emotions from their competitors, or is that just the nature of restrictor plate racing?
I didn't get a chance to watch it. I was, once I got through the care center and whatnot, and by the time I got to the airport to leave, it was right at being over, I would say. So, no, it wasn't that I was too frustrated to watch it. I think I just was ready to go home more than anything. So, and no, I think that, sure, there's going to be frustration. I was frustrated. I think everybody was frustrated. We just got past the halfway point, and, half the field got crashed in one wreck, and unfortunately I was the guy that was ahead of the rest of them. So, I can definitely take some blame for it. I think that it's so circumstantial, though, and I think it's so hard to point fingers in those situations. Everybody's trying to take advantage of situations, and if you don't take advantage of a situation, you're going to get taken advantage of by somebody else. And I think that everybody was being aggressive. I certainly was, but I know that the whole field was all day, and you have to kind of set that precedent, because if you let a guy run over you or make a move on you, he's going to count on that every time. So I just think you have to, do what you think's right, go with your gut, and it didn't work out last weekend, but I don't I think it's hard to point fingers in an incident like that. I was, yeah, definitely. That was. I feel a lot better now, and I feel 100%, so I'm good.
Jessica?
Jessica Rev with NASCAR.com. So many drivers love coming to Atlanta, saying it's kind of a racers type track. For you personally, why do you enjoy racing here?
I think that being the case, I think that this is a track where you can have your car driving good, and you might be able to make up a deficit that you might be fighting somewhere else, or have somebody have an advantage on you. So I just think having the ability to go out and practice and your feedback, I feel like it's just worth a little more here. And I think that a lot of guys feel that way. And as you run a race, how you drive your car at the first half of the run can affect how your performance is going to be in the second half of the run. And a lot of places that's not the case either. So it's just a fun place to come. I think anywhere where, you run 3 or 4 laps and the lap times have fallen off, significantly like they are here all the time. I think that makes it fun. It makes it fun from a strategy standpoint. It makes it fun for the racers. That being the biggest reason.
Chase, before we let you go tomorrow, you're going to be in the broadcast booth for FS1's coverage of the NASCAR Xfinity Series race. What's your preparation like to get ready for that?
Well, luckily, I got to talk to Adam Alexander a little bit this morning, and I did it last year, and honestly, those guys are so good at it. Especially him. He does a really good job with it, and he's gotten used to having guests, I think, in the booth. So he does a great job of throwing it to you at the right times and not making it awkward, and allowing me to give some input when I need to and keep my mouth shut when I need to as well. So I do want to thank Fox for letting me get on there and do that tomorrow. I'm excited about it. They're also going to show a little bit of our foundation stuff this weekend again, and we're doing our shoe program with all 4 Hendrick drivers in coordination with the Children's Health Care of Atlanta for proceeds going to them and auction our shoes off that we're wearing this weekend. So thanks to them for kind of letting us get that on TV too, and I'm excited to hopefully not mess up the broadcast tomorrow. We'll see.
Good deal. Good luck with everything.
Yep. All right,
Take care
thanks.
now. If I could have your attention here in the media center, we are joined by reigning Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series champion Martin Truex Jr., driver of the number 78 Bass Pro Shops 5-hour Energy Toyota for Furniture Row Racing. Martin, you were the king of the 1.5 miles last year, coming to our first 1.5 miles of the season. How comfortable are you in the car right now heading into this weekend's race here in Atlanta?
Looking forward to it. Had a pretty decent first practice there, and it's fun to get out on a racetrack like this and knock the rust off. It's always a bit of a surprise to come here a year later, and just get reminded of how crazy this place is and how slick it is and how fast it is. So definitely a cool place to come knock the rust off, and felt like we had a good practice. So excited about that. But as far as 1.5 miles go, I think this one is very unique. It's very different than most of the rest of them, and we're still looking to figure this place out, but I feel like we're getting closer, and hopefully we'll have a good weekend here.
Okay, we'll open the floor up for questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We will get a wireless microphone to you. We'll go to Jeff, then Lee, and then Jacob.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. So with this new inspection system, are we going to see a big line of cars and people like, oh, I'm not going to be able to go out and qualify? Or is everybody just going to get through nicely and no problems?
That's a great question. I think we'll find out here in about 2 hours, to be honest, 3 hours. I know that our guys are planning. We stopped practice early just to try to get a jump start and have a good plan going into this system today, just to see what happens. We're trying to be ahead of the curve, I guess you could say. So it has potential to be, very difficult. It just depends on how many, guys have to go around and what kind of line that creates.
We'll go to Lee, then to Jacob, then to Rick, then to Mark.
LeeSpencerMotorsport.com. Has your life changed dramatically since winning the championship back in November? Is there anything that has happened to you that maybe was a little bit out of the ordinary or something you hadn't experienced before?
I can honestly say that not really. When I go places, it's a little different. I've gotten to do, obviously, I got to do a lot of different stuff this off season because we won the championship, and that was, all fun and a lot of new stuff to me. But I can honestly say I'm no different. I mean, I don't feel any different. I don't do anything different during the week. I don't hang out with different people. It's just, it's an accomplishment that I've worked my whole life for, and I could not be more proud to be a champion of the Cup Series. But honestly, I'm still the same person, so I don't really know how to answer that one. But I would say no. I would say that we're approaching this season very similarly to how we did last year. Trying to be open-minded, not get caught by surprise, try to be as well prepared as we can. A lot of things have changed in the off-season. The inspection process is one of them. But it's a new year, and everybody's, worked all winter to try to come back and go after their first championship or, try to knock us off the top of the hill. So you got to be open-minded. You got to be driven. You got to work hard. You can't take any of it for granted because it'll slip out from under you. So I think everybody's done a good job of just being prepared, and so far things have gone fairly smoothly. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out and continue to work like we always do.
Go to Jacob, then to Rick, Mark, and Matt.
Jacob Zielman, Race Chaser Online Performance Motorsports Network. Martin, with Atlanta, Chase was talking about a little bit ago, with this being such a different kind of mile and a half with the tire wear and how everything plays out here, for you being the king of mile and a halves, is this where the title defense starts, or do you really not necessarily feel that until you get to Vegas, which, oddly enough, you won last year?
Well, I think that this is a good first chance for us to see kind of where we stack up against the competition, how we feel, as compared to years past. So I don't know. This is a great racetrack. It's a lot of fun to race here. I always look forward to it, and it's a good place to kick off the season as far as getting off the super speedway or the restrictor plate race. So we'll just see how it goes, but I feel good so far, and got a lot of things to accomplish this weekend.
Rick Miller, Martin, I know it's kind of ancient history, but what do you remember about your IROC wins from here? And looking back on them, is that more impressive, less impressive? You were able to do it at such a young age here?
I guess what sticks out to me most there is just beating all the Cup guys. I was still an Xfinity regular back then doing that, and we always ran really well in the IROC cars. Won both races here. Should have won a bunch more at other racetracks, but to win them both here was really cool. To race with the Cup guys and beat them, it was really a feather in my cap at the time. And looking back and thinking about it, I just remember how special it felt, and how great of an accomplishment I felt like it was at the time to race and beat guys like Mark Martin and Tony Stewart and Newman and Kenseth. And there was just, the field was stacked, and it was a huge deal for me back then to be able to do that.
Mark.
Mark Garrow, PRN. Amen. Last year, after winning at Las Vegas and the way that you won at Las Vegas, did you have an inkling then or any idea that, man, we are going to wax these guys on the 1.5 mile tracks all year?
Not really. I think if you look back at that race, we did run really well, but at the end of the race, we were probably second best car. I think the 2 car had us beat. They beat us off, out of the pits or whatever, I think, and they had us beat at the end, so without their failure, we probably run second there. But, I don't know. I think we just take it 1 week at a time. There was, I think at the beginning of the season last year, we had a brand new 2018 Camry we were trying to figure out and felt like we were behind the curve a little bit on that. So I think come out of the box as strong as we did and win Vegas, it definitely made us feel good, and we knew we still had some development to do, some things to work on to get better. So we were optimistic, but you just never know how it's going to work out.
How did you look back, as you look back over your season, the performances you had on the mile and a half racetracks? How did you look at that, the laps led and the dominance there?
Just hope to try to do it again. Honestly, there's a lot of good numbers there to shoot for. It's certainly going to be hard to duplicate. We'll just have to see. But I feel like mile and a halves are places where I feel comfortable, places where I think we've learned a lot as a group over the years on how to approach them, how to be good on them, and what it takes. So we'll see if we can put it all together again this year.
Go to your left here to Matt.
Matt Weaver, AutoWeek.com. I know you're a new addition to the Drivers' Council this year, but how influential do you think the council was when it came to the decision not to resurface this place? And moving forward, what sort of discussions do you think the council will have when it comes to whether or not to do it this year or how to go about doing it, what aggregates, stuff like that?
I would say there's not a driver in the garage that wants to pave this track or wants this track to get repaved. Unfortunately, we're going to probably find out on Sunday. I think the weather and Mother Nature and the circumstances that we'll have to deal with this weekend are going to be what makes that decision for us. But as far as racing goes and being a driver, this place is so fun. It's so challenging. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't love it because of all those reasons. So it's a lot of fun, and we'll see. I don't know that anybody's going to stop from repaving it eventually. We'll just have to see how it works out.
Jerry
Jordan, KickingTheTires.net and PRN. I'm not sure if it's Texas or Kansas or Vegas that's the closest to your home shop over in Denver. But
Kansas.
Okay, well, of course it is. But
Kansas.
But what about next week going to Vegas? Is it going to be that you're on the West Coast? Is that going to be a little bit of fun to be out there so that maybe you can bring some people to the track?
I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea who they plan on bringing to the track or whatever. I show up with my stuff and ready to go. I mean, focused on that.
Any additional questions for Martin?
Follow up. Is like the crew, anybody from the shop, do they get the opportunity to go to the races? Because when they're out here, it doesn't seem like all the people can make it. That's why I was kind of.
Yeah, I mean, we have rosters now, so there's only a certain amount of guys you can bring anyway. You know, as far as to work on the car and work in the garage and things like that. But, you know, I'm sure Barney will be there and bring, you know, some people for the race or whatever. I would say that, you know, there won't be more than normal. I think there'll be a usual number of people.
Go to the back. Christian?
Christian Coley, frontstretch.com and the Motorsports News Source. I asked Brad and I also asked Chase about speeding penalties last year. Can you go over us about how you felt like speeding penalties could affect Sunday's race, and if you feel like they will affect Sunday's race?
I think speeding penalties can affect every race. I mean, it's something that everybody really works hard on to not get those penalties, but also you've got to be fast on pit road. You've got to push the limits because there's time to be gained and lost, and you know, ultimately it's easier to pass on pit road than anywhere on the racetrack. So I assume that it won't be any different than normal. I don't think anything's changed there. I think pit stops are still going to be the biggest topic of conversation about what happens on pit road with the new system and just the way everybody. I mean, there was some awful slow pit stops last week, and our team was one of them. So I think that's going to be the bigger story, more so than speeding penalties.
Next to Nate.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Martin, there's been some talk among your peers about disapproval of NASCAR distributing some of this EFI data, making it more readily available to teams. Just wondering your perspective on that. Do you think that changes the game at all, especially as somebody who was so far ahead, like on the mile-and-a-half tracks a lot of places last year?
Well, I definitely don't like to see it. You know, I don't think it's really a good idea to be letting all the other teams see drivers' data from different teams. I certainly don't want people looking at what I'm doing. I've worked for 13 years to work on my style, figure out different racetracks, and feel like the way I drive the car and the data that, you know, is produced by that is kind of, it's mine. It's not for everybody to see. That's my style. It's the way I drive. It's stuff I've worked on for years and years and years. And the fact that, you know, rookies will be able to see that stuff, I don't think is fair, because it didn't come like that for me. I had to figure out how to drive each track and why they were different and how to adapt my style to each racetrack. So I feel like it's intellectual property. I know a lot of the guys agree with that. We'll just have to see what comes out of this and what it looks like. I mean, at this point in time, you know, the data is pretty much useless to look at from the standpoint that it's just not that accurate. So I'm hoping it stays that way. And, you know, we've talked to NASCAR and we've tried to, you know, do as much as we can to help them understand this, because I don't think we want everybody in the garage driving exactly the same way. I mean, it's already, the cars are so close together. There's a lot of style involved in making your car go around the track better than everybody else's, and you certainly don't want to share that. You know, I can't answer that, to be honest. I'm not sure why. It's not very accurate right now. But again, I hope it stays that way. I don't know what that all entails. On whose end is it that it's not really filtered down yet? It's really hard to say at this point. I don't know a whole lot about it other than I hate that it's going this direction.
Well, Martin, good luck this
Thank you.
weekend and good luck the rest of the year. If I could have your attention here in the Media Center, we'll continue on with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availability, and we're joined by Ryan Blaney, driver of the number 12 Dex Imaging Ford for Team Penske. Ryan entering this race as your points leader in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. Ryan, how's your week been after Daytona, and how eager were you to get back on track here today in Atlanta?
There we go. Yeah, it's been pretty relaxed, to be honest with you. We didn't really do much. You just do your typical debriefs, and it was nice to be home after 10 days of being in Daytona, and the weather was pretty nice in North Carolina too, which was just that much better. So excited to get back to the racetrack. You know, it's always nice to have a little bit of downtime from the 10 days you're down in Daytona, but you know, you're ready to get back to the racetrack, and this place is awesome. You know, we're slipping and sliding, and just a fun place to come. We struggled a little bit in practice today in qualifying trim, but I thought hopefully we can get a little bit better. But yeah, it's nice to be back, and nice to be just getting the season starting to roll.
Okay, we're going to open the floor for questions. If you have a question, we'll get a wireless mic to you. Raise your hand. We'll start here with Mike. Go to Jacob, then Jerry.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. Ryan, do you leave Daytona pleased with how really good you did, or disappointed with the fact you couldn't close it out and it wasn't really your fault?
Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of in a weird mood Sunday and Monday, and I wasn't really like distraught or nothing, but I wasn't really happy or excited. I was almost in kind of a weird, peaceful mood, which was strange, and I knew that we went out and we did our best that we could, and you know, it just didn't work out for us. And you know, what are you going to do? You can't complain too much about that. We had the lead and we lost it on the restart, and we actually got it back, and then get shuffled back. It was so hard to block as the leader, and it was nuts after that. You know, 10 to go caution. I knew it was going to get nuts, and but yeah, I wasn't really disappointed. You know, yeah, you lead a bunch of the race, and you lose out on the 500, but you know, I don't care about leading 100 and something laps. I'd rather lead one, you know, and you can't be too down about it. You just move on. You just try to learn from your mistakes and try to figure out what you can do a little bit better. But no, I wasn't really like distraught or nothing. Just kind of, I don't know. I was in a weird mood, but it wasn't bad. So
go to Jacob, Jerry, Bob, and Ben.
Jacob Zillman, Race Chaser Online Performance Motorsports Network. Ryan, welcome to the top of the heap. I know it's taken a couple years, and in your first race with Team Penske in the 12 car, no less. I know it's only one race, but what's that feeling like to look at the point standings and find yourself at the top of the list? And you know, now that you see the speed you had even at Daytona, how do you go forward and replicate that?
I'll be honest with you, I haven't even looked at the points. If you wouldn't have told me that, I wouldn't have even known I was a points leader. You know, it's not somewhere you're going to be sitting for 37 weeks. You just try to go out there and, you know, do the best you can. We, you know, honestly, we haven't really like raced yet. You know, we haven't got to a track where, you know, you're working on your car throughout practice to try to get to handle on long runs. And Daytona, you do a little bit of that, but it's, you know, it's not like here or Vegas or Phoenix. So, yeah, I haven't even paid attention to that. You just try to focus on, okay, how can we go into Atlanta and try to have a good run and go try to win the race. That was really my main focus. I haven't really paid attention to the points or anything like that. I want to win races, and the points thing is kind of last on my mind. Maybe unless, you know, we get closer to playoff time and I don't have a win, you start focusing on the points. But definitely early in the season, you just want to get a win and try to start the season off on the right foot.
You're good. Jerry, Bob, and Ben.
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net and PRN. Ryan, your genuine appreciation and interaction with the fans is kind of like, you know, something other drivers obviously could learn from. But did you train yourself to do that? How did you become the guy who just goes out there and has lunch with a fan at you know, in Orlando? Or what made you become so fan interactive and friendly?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. Maybe growing up watching my dad do it. I felt like my dad was really good at you know, giving a lot of his time to the fans and appreciating them. And when you're growing up in the garage area and you're admiring your dad and you watch him do everything, that's what you learn. That's what you pick up on. And honestly, I wasn't like this until probably only 2 or 3 years ago. I was very introverted and still am. And honestly, I talk more with fans than I do other people, strangers. Than I do other people, and you know, who I know a little bit better for some reason. But I don't know. I think just the more you're around the sport and the older that you get, you appreciate the time and commitment that these fans have, these people have to bring their families out to the race weekends. They don't have to come; they can stay home and watch the race. But they want to bring their families out. They want to enjoy the race, and they don't have to be a fan of you. No, they don't even know you. They're a fan of how you drive or how you are off the track. So I feel like if you get to meet them and kind of get a little bit more of your own personality to them. That's the least we can do to appreciate everybody. But I don't know. It's really only been that way for a couple years, and I think it was mainly just, like I said, watching my dad and growing up in the sport.
Go to Bob, then to Ben, then to Lee.
Bob Pockers, ESPN. You're good friends with Bubba, so I wanted to ask you, how much do you think all the cameras and attention, if at all, kind of not necessarily bothered him, but weighed on him, and the whole kind of Daytona 500 experience weighed on him? And could he have handled all of that 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job of handling it well. That was a long, week and a half in Daytona. But honestly, when they made that 43 announcement, he was getting blown up on, doing media stuff and social media and things like that. And I thought he handled it well. But at the actual at-track stuff, he did really well. And it's funny, I'll actually tell you all a story of, it was, I think it was right when I got down to Daytona, maybe Friday, and I was watching quarter midget races over there in the infield. And Dale Jr. gives me a call. And he's like, hey, I need you to go call Bubba and calm him down, because I think he was getting really overwhelmed with all the media and the pressure that was kind of being bestowed upon him. And we haven't even got started yet. And he and I had a little bit of a talk, and not really a talk, but just trying to relax him and telling him that he deserves to be here and don't let all that other stuff. It's a good thing that he's getting recognized on all forms of TV and entertainment and media and things like that, and don't see it as pressure, see it as a well-deserved opportunity that he got. But I think he dealt with it really well, and he proved that Sunday when he was able to kind of put all this behind him and then just go out there and race. And I don't think he could have handled that a few years ago. I think he's matured a lot over the past 2 or 3 years. And honestly, I feel like him sitting out a little bit last season really matured him a lot and made him appreciate the chances that he gets and the opportunities. And I think that humbled him a lot and made him grow up. And but no, to answer your question, I don't think he could have done it 3 or 4 years ago. I think he did a really good job of dealing everything, with everything on the track and off the track. And I'm pretty proud of him for that. So.
Go to Ben, then to Lee, then to Caleb.
Ryan, Ben White with Lexington Dispatch over here. Can you talk to me just a little bit about how much you can go to Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski for their experience? If you've got questions, can you readily go to them and say, hey, I've got a problem or whatever as far as driving or anything for that matter? Yeah,
they've been great to me. I drove for Brad. Brad, honestly, he's the one who kind of got me into the NASCAR scene, driving his trucks in 2012. And it was a him and a Penske racing deal, but he's one that kind of gave me my shot. So I'll always look at Brad as a mentor to me, and he's always been very open. And whenever I've been having questions about whatever cars, trucks or Xfinity cars or Cup cars, whenever I was kind of just getting started in it, nowadays I don't ask a ton of questions because you've been in it for a while. You don't really want to bug them guys, but I feel like we work very well together, us three, and even Paul. With him coming in, I think that's what makes us a very strong team. Is the drivers work very well together. We all get along, and the crew chiefs on every team, they get along as well. So you have to have that if you're going to compete with these 4, 5, 6 car teams out there. So I feel like they've been great to me, and I appreciate all their help. But I feel like everybody working together is what's going to make it work, and I feel like we do that very well. Yep.
Go to Lee, and we'll wrap up with Caleb.
LeeSpencerMotorsport.com. I've got a kind of a 2-part question. First of all, you were on the Bubba bandwagon before there was a bandwagon, and what attracted you to him initially, and then I'll ask my second question.
Yeah, well, really, we grew up racing together. We grew up racing these Bandolero cars when we were 10 years old, and when you're that age, him and I are the same age, and when you're that age, you're kind of just getting started. It's mostly just about making friends at the racetrack. There's not a lot of people your age that young at the track, so he and I became friends that early. And then we kind of split up when he did late model stuff. I did a different form of late models, and then he was doing K&N stuff when I was, and trucks, and we lived really close to each other. And then we just became friends both on and off the track. And I don't know, he's a very, very humble guy, and he's been someone who's I appreciate friends who've been there since the beginning, since you've been really, really young, and I feel like you can appreciate them. You know, they're not just ones who come and go. They've been friends since your childhood, and I like to try to keep as many of those as I can. But just someone I've known for a long time who've, you know, we just happen to race together, and it's cool we're racing together now on Sundays, and just someone, you know, a childhood friend. It's good.
And he's in a similar situation that you were in when you went to the Wood Brothers. There's really only two organizations, the Wood Brothers and the Petties, that have been there since day one. The kind of spark that you brought to the Wood Brothers was probably the biggest hit, you know, when you won especially, that they had had since Trevor Bayne won the Daytona 500. The kind of attention Bubba's getting right now is probably the most attention that car's had since the King got out of it. Have you talked to him about that responsibility that kind of goes along with that, or have you been able to share notes? Because that's a lot to put on the shoulders of somebody your age.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, that's a good comparison. I thought it was cool when we were both driving the 21 and 43 last year, you know, in a few races. And I think I sat back and I told him, I'm like, man, we're driving two of the most iconic cars in NASCAR. That's really, really special that we've been able to do that. But you know, I think he can have a huge impact on that race car and that team. I don't think, you know, can't think of any better driver to put in that thing with, you know. And I remind him, I'm like, dude, you're driving for, you know, Richard Petty, and that's really special. You should definitely appreciate, you know, that race team, that history, what Richard has done in the sports, and you know, him and Inman. And I know they're really excited. I've gotten to talk to Richard and Inman a little bit, and they're, you know, they're happier than ever, I feel like, with him and the job he's doing. So I think, you know, sky's the limit for him and that race team as far as, you know, growing that team to where it needs to be. And you know, I wish them the best. I think they're going to do good. They looked really good today, and hopefully they can, you know, keep improving and keep getting better. That team seems to be really good. I like Drew, who's the crew chief on that car. I think he does a great job also. But yeah, I think that he can do some really great things with that team and grow it to, you know, places where I don't think it's ever been before in recent years.
Caleb Whistler, KickingTheTires.net. Have you guys as a team and an organization discussed the risk versus rewards in short pitting with the new pit crew rules here?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes, we have. You know, that's going to be huge this weekend. You know, before here, you'd short pit like crazy, and you'd be able to make it up. But now with these pit stops being about 3 seconds slower, that's a lot of time you got to make up from short pitting, and there's a lot more time of, you know, risk of going a lap down. You know, that's not only here, that's, you know, the Poconos and other places like that, to where you really count on that stuff. So we have weighed the pros and cons about it, and you know, we're going to keep talking about it here over the next couple days before the race. But yeah, it's you won't see as many short pitting or people doing it as drastically, I don't think, just because you could go a lap down, the caution comes out. There's just so much more time you have to make up. And you know, tires are huge here, but when you add 3.5 more seconds, that's a lot. So we have thought about that a lot here over the past, you know, really over the past month. We've been thinking about it from here and other racetracks like that where you short pit. So that'll be a game changer come Sunday for sure.
Ryan, thanks for taking the time to join us. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
We are joined here in the Media Center now by Major Dan Rooney with Folds of Honor, as well as our honorary recipient, Colleen Katzenberger-Corsi. And Dan, been here a couple years. Tell us a little bit about Folds of Honor and the whole story.
Yeah, so it is great to be back, and everybody in this press room understands that freedom is not free, and the Folds of Honor continues to grow. This is by far our biggest week. We reach millions of NASCAR fans, which every one of us are connected to in this room. You know, God-fearing, flag-waving, Budweiser drinking, just great people, and we're able to share the story, like Colleen will share with us, of the spouses and children who are left behind. And Folds had a record year last year. We put out over $16 million in scholarships to spouses and children. And in the quick trip markets alone, since we started this, we've awarded over $20 million in scholarships. So this race is a huge force multiplier and is truly life-changing in that regard. And I'm going to let Colleen share her story, because I can tell you all the facts that you want, and you might take a couple of them down, but stories are what live in our hearts and minds, and especially these heroic families who have paid such a tremendous sacrifice. So we have the freedom to celebrate this country and sit around for a weekend at the Atlanta Motor Speedway and watch a great race. So Colleen, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody being out here. I'm always so humbled by the support for Folds of Honor. It's pretty impressive. I think it still blows my mind that my story is just one of 20,000 of the lives that have been touched by Folds of Honor and their scholarships. Kind of looking around the room, there's some younger faces and older faces, and I think the thing that always comes to my mind is just that question of, where were you at 26? At 26 years old, what were you doing? Because I can tell you that shortly after my 26th birthday, I felt on top of the world. I was a new mother. I was married to an amazing Army Ranger, Staff Sergeant Jeremy A. Katzenberger, and working as a registered nurse. And I really felt like life was pretty good. Couldn't get much better. And then on June 14th of 2011, I got probably the most devastating news a Ranger wife can imagine. Jeremy had been killed on his 8th deployment in the Paktika province of Afghanistan. And at 26, I feel like you get news like that, and you look at your 7-month-old baby and you think, what do I do now? Because all those hopes, all those dreams that you had of more babies, of white picket fence, growing old next to the love of your life, all of a sudden, every single one of those dreams is gone. And you think to yourself, what do I do now? And the one thing I knew I had to keep doing was being a mom, right? There was no choice to that, thank God. And that definitely is what got me out of bed every day for a while. But as I began to put together those pieces again and think about that, what do I do now? I had a really strong conviction that I could no longer go back and be a registered nurse as well as I once was. And so I got this strange idea that I wanted to become a high school biology teacher. And in that moment, I thought to myself, what? How can this work? How can this happen? Financially, how can I make this work? How can I do this? And I'll tell you, the first big step that I took after losing Jeremy to put together my pieces again was the moment I decided to go back and get a master's of education. And the crazy thing about it was that first semester when all the bills started coming in and the financial burden of going back for a master's really started to hit, I was ready to give it up. I was ready to say, no, this is not the next step. I'm being selfish. I need to save. I need to be financially smart for my son. And along came this organization, Folds of Honor, and they said, don't you dare. Don't you dare give up, because we want to honor your husband's legacy, and we want to make sure that you have those steps to keep moving forward. We want to make sure that you can put together a life for your son, and we want to make sure that you're okay. And I think of that moment where I got that news about the scholarship, and it just humbles me to the core. Because now, here I am almost 4 years later in my second year of teaching high school biology, and yes, it's just as hard as you would imagine, teaching high schoolers. They're a group of their own. But for the first time in a really long time, I have my pieces together again. I have hopes, I have dreams, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss Jeremy and think about what could have been, or the dad that he would have been to that little guy back there. But I'm also very thankful for people like you that come out and support these sort of events, that put Folds of Honor as a priority, that make it something that has the years go by. And I was thinking about it as I was flying here today. It's going to be 7 years next week, actually, that we will have lived without Jeremy. And it's the first year, it's longer than my marriage with him. We were married for 6 years, and there's something about that that's really strange to me, that 7 years later, I can't help but think he'd be so proud. He'd be so proud. And I'll tell you, I don't think that wouldn't be what I was saying if it weren't for Folds of Honor and their ability to come in and help me finish school and become somebody new when I felt like I had nothing else left. So as we have a lot of fun this weekend and we enjoy the freedoms of America and those that have fought so hard for weekends like this, I just personally want to say thank you from the one of 20,000 of us that have received these scholarships, that are remembered, that our heroes are honored. It goes beyond just the scholarship. It's the fact that you remember and you care, and that's a really big deal, and it means a lot. And my story is just one of them. You know, my little guy's got a scholarship to use later in life, and that's also a really good feeling. And the way that the legacy is always honored by Folds of Honor, it humbles me to my core.
We appreciate you sharing your story here in the Media Center with us this afternoon. Dan, you've been doing this for many years. Tell us a little bit about how people can go about getting involved.
Well, I think that's just the ultimate force multiplier that we have here at the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 this weekend through Fox, and equally important, everybody's lens and everybody's pinned in here. I just ask that you take 5 minutes and jot something down about the most significant race in NASCAR. I know we had the biggest race last week, but this is the most significant race in NASCAR because it is changing lives. It is changing our country. We are empowering families from sea to shining sea. And we just ask that you share the story of Folds of Honor, and you've all been given a platform in here. And that is the singular ask, I would say, on behalf of what will be 20,000 scholarship recipients this year, on behalf of my squadron that'll do the flyby, weather permitting, on Sunday. But I'll tell you what, we've been at this 10 years, and God brings sunshine to the darkest places, and that is literally the business we're in. And I'm sure it's going to be a great Sunday. And during that 13th lap, when those fans hold up that folded American flag, it's truly a significant moment that represents the 13 folds of the American flag that comes to that iconic triangle shape, which weighs only 2.3 pounds. But I will tell you, for families like Colleen, that weight is crushing, and we are humbled and honored to come alongside of them and help them carry that. The other thing I would ask all you fine folks in this room is we're in our scholarship season, and that's when families can apply for scholarships. So if you can share that message, and that runs through March, and let them know, because there are so many families that are going to be sitting on couches on Sunday watching this race, that follow NASCAR, that don't know Folds of Honor is out there and available, and we want to make sure we get that word out as well. And obviously none of this is possible without Quick Trip and our friends at Coca-Cola, because Folds of Honor does not write the check. Here, we're in the business of putting dollars out the door to fund scholarships, and we could never do what we do without this unbelievable corporate support from QT and Coca-Cola. And I know, by the way, they have the best press room in all of NASCAR, and it's like Quick Trip, but it doesn't cost anything. So they deserve a round of applause for that, I know, as well. And they're all back here in the back, the folks that make that possible.
We got time for a couple of questions. If anybody has any questions, just raise your hand and we can get a microphone over to you if you have one for Dan or Colleen. We have one in the back.
Thank you, Doug Turnbull with PRN and WSB Radio. I guess I'll ask Dan. This is, I think, if I'm counting right, either the fourth year in a row, I'm pretty sure, that you guys are the title sponsor of the race. How much has the foundation grown because of this particular sponsorship? Because I didn't hear of this for the first time until 2015.
Yeah, we are growing in incredibly powerful ways. As I mentioned, this is our biggest weekend of the year. The force multiplier effect of getting to millions of people across this country. We will, as I mentioned, this year will award approximately $20 million worth of scholarships. And Ben, do you have the number for 4 years ago, what we awarded? No, that's not right. So we've gone from $3 million to $20 million in scholarships awarded. So, I mean, you look at that's just unbelievable. Yeah. So it's huge, and thanks. You guys at PRN have just been great supporters ever since we've been here, so thank you for doing that.
Anybody else with any other questions for Dan or Colleen?
So I'll just, if there's not another question, I'll just close with one thing in your press pack. Every year, the friends at Quick Trip get together, and there's a coin, and it's new every year, a new design, and that coin has a lot of significance in our world as fighter pilots. We finish our training, which is about 2.5 years long, costs about $7 or $8 million per copy to train us. At the end, all they do is give us a coin. And it dates back to the Great War. There was a young aviator shot down over there, and this kid made his way to France, but he didn't have any uniform identification. They sentenced him to death by firing squad on the spot, and he remembered he had a coin on him with his squadron on one side of it, and he presented this coin, ultimately saved his life, hence the tradition of the coin. And in that same spirit, Quick Trip every year creates a commemorative coin for this race, and there is one in your press pack. We ask you to do two things. One, carry it as a reminder that freedom is not free. Not that we need one here with Colleen sitting next to me, but also because we play a game called The Challenge, so we'll end on a lighter note here. So once you have a coin in your possession, you're in the game, and you can be challenged by another coin holder. So if you were challenged by me by presenting my coin to you, you'd have to meet that challenge by presenting yours back. Done so successfully, I will buy the Budweiser. Unsuccessfully, you buy it. So make sure you get the coins out of the press packs and you carry it. And it's an honor to be here and look forward to seeing everybody this weekend. And we're certainly available to hang out over the next couple days and share more stories. But thank you all, and God bless America.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we're going to continue our media availabilities here with a few of our NASCAR Xfinity Series drivers. We've got Justin Allgaier, driver of the number 7 Rinnai Chevrolet; Kaz Grala, driver of the number 24 Marlow's Tavern Ford; Brandon Jones, number 19 of the Menards Toyota; and Tyler Reddick, the driver of the number 9 Nationwide Children's Hospital Chevrolet. I'll let you grab that. Thank you guys for joining us today. We appreciate it. We'll start with you, Tyler. I'm going to ask you guys all the same question, really. Just, tell us a little bit about your Daytona 500 experience. Obviously, you are our champion, and your Daytona experience, and let us know what it was like for you and how you're heading into this week.
Well, it was quite chaotic, to be honest. Not really sure, who won on that last overtime attempt. We almost won the race a couple other times before the caution came out, but ultimately on that last overtime attempt, I don't know how, but we barely edged Elliott at the line, and just got the perfect side draft in 3 and 4, and then got him pulled back just enough going through the tri-oval that we edged him by just a couple inches. So quite unreal way to start the year. Quite an unreal way to start, my tenure at Junior Motorsports, winning my first start. It's pretty cool. Me and Regan Smith were talking about how me and him have the only two that have done that for Junior Motorsports. So that's a pretty cool deal as well. So let's try and keep it rolling here. We don't have quite the fire speed we need to have in our Nationwide Children's Hospital Chevrolet, but I think our long run speed won't be bad. We just got to keep working on it, and the car drives good. I think that's a really important part. We just got to manage our tires.
Justin, you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, mine was the exact opposite of Tyler's. We ran up front kind of all day at Daytona. Really felt like we put ourselves in good position at the end. I mean, that's the hard part. I don't know how many overtime attempts you went through, but it just seemed like coming down to the end, guys were getting more and more anxious, and I thought we were going to be in great shape. We started on the outside of the front row for the first green-white checker, and just the way that things worked out, Eric was on my back bumper, and I actually couldn't turn left. He was too far to the left of my back bumper, and I couldn't turn left. So going into 1, it kind of shot me up the hill and lost the draft. And then they all crashed off at turn 2, and I had nowhere to go, and I hit Eric. So kind of a frustrating way to end, a good day. But it was great to have Tyler obviously in victory lane and Elliott right there with him, and Chase ran really well. Unfortunately, Michael and I both got caught up in other stuff. But really proud of everybody at Junior Motorsports. I think, coming here, composite body, the OSS for the first time, doing a lot of things that we're going through. I feel like our team's done a really good job. And like Tyler said, our Rinnai Chevy's really, really fast. It feels good. I think the long run's going to be kind of our strengths this week, hopefully. And find a little bit of short run speed, I think we'll be in great shape.
Brandon?
Our goal, I think, was to finish the race and finish top 15 doing that. We finished the race, but we didn't actually come through with no scratches on the car. We ended up, I think, getting in 5 incidents throughout the day, and it was weird. It was like myself and Chris Gapehart's understanding. For whatever reason, it clearly states this in the rule book that it's unlimited attempts for the the green-white checkered finish there, and for whatever reason, we thought it was just 3. So we were pretty much done after that last spin through the grass there, and we started loading up tires and stuff, and all of a sudden we're like, whoa, we got to put tires back on it. So we kind of had to thrash there at the end and rallied back to 10th. So it was not too bad considering the day that we had fought through all day long. For Atlanta anyways, it's always fun coming back home for myself. Grew up about an hour away from here, so it's fun to come back. This is a difficult track. This is probably our hardest 1.5-mile track that we do come to, just because of the surface here and what it takes to be so disciplined to pick a line and stick to it and run it consistently. So I've been trying to find a little bit more speed in our 19 Menards Toyota Camry today. So we'll see what we get later on.
And Kaz, you're coming from the truck series. Can you talk a little bit about how this was for you too?
Well, I mean, last weekend was definitely eventful for me. First time sitting in an Xfinity car, and we didn't quite have the speed that we were hoping to have. We qualified 27th, and we couldn't hang with the draft the first half of the race, but we made some adjustments to it. Shane Wilson did a really good job on the Mustang and got us faster, and by the second half we could hang with the pack, and we were able to make a few moves and put ourselves in the right position, and by the end of the race we worked ourselves up into the top 5 for the past couple overtime attempts, and we finished 4th. So my team and I were thrilled with that finish. That was a great way to start the season for us and give us a little bit of confidence and momentum going into this weekend, and so far off to a good start for us here at Atlanta.
Awesome. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Go to Matt.
Matt Weaver, AutoWeek.com. A question for Brandon. Your family has been supporters of Spencer Davis for a long time, and he's running 5 truck races this year. I assume you know him pretty well, too. And just what is it about Spencer that your family believes in him so much to give him this opportunity?
Yeah, so I my first 2 tracks that I ever started at 13 were Lanier Speedway in Brazelton, Georgia, and Gresham, just north of it. So those were the 2 tracks I ran every single Friday, Saturday night growing up racing. And myself and Spencer were the 2 trucks, and we were 2 teammates at the time doing it. So I've been teammates with Spencer for a long time, and then trying to give him a little bit of an opportunity as well was our goal there. But pretty good little race car driver for sure. He's done a heck of a job in super late models, and he's came up through the ranks pretty well there. So that's kind of our relationship with Spencer. Just running short track races with him when I first started.
Jacob Seelman, Race Chaser Online Performance Motorsports Network. I've got 2 questions. Brandon, for you first. New scenery this year. What's the change in atmosphere been like going over to JGR and Toyota, and how do you feel like you fit in so far?
We've had a blast, man. We really have. I feel like this team that I've got this year with Chris Gapehart and those guys, we really connected pretty well so far. All of our personalities mesh pretty well. He's definitely all serious and no nonsense. So that's been pretty good for me. I've been pretty disciplined on some new stuff that I've been having to work through. But a lot of tools that he's probably tried to put together just for me, just to learn a little bit more than I have in the past. And so I feel like I've gotten a lot more hands-on learning experience at this team so far. That's been the biggest change I've seen as far as the years gone on. Obviously changed from manufacturer, went to Toyota this year with JGR. For myself, that's a change anyways, and it's been nothing but positive there. A lot of support from Toyota, so it's been good for sure so far.
Second question for the Treble Twins over there. Yes, Tyler, that includes you. What's the dynamic been like for you, Tyler, going over to JRM, and then I guess Justin, if you want to add to that from a veteran perspective, what's the dynamic been like for him fitting in where Byron was last year?
Well, it's been pretty easy. Get along really well with Dave Ellens and everybody really, Junior Motorsports. It's a real family environment, and the transition's been real easy, honestly. Feel like fit right in with everybody, and we hit the ground running pretty good at Daytona. So, we still very early on in the season, second race in, but right off the bat, I feel like everyone's getting along pretty good. I know me and the guys on my team are getting along great, having a blast so far, and that's a very important part that sometimes people lose focus on is you got to have fun too. And when you're having fun, you're gonna have a fast race car, and you guys are gonna have a good weekend. So it's been really fun so far, getting to know everybody, and from my side of it, it's been great. He might tell you something completely different though.
No, I think it's been great. Last year having William in had one kind of outlook on things. Being around the sport of motorsport for a lot less than obviously Tyler or myself or Elliott or Michael. Tyler and I kind of grew up racing some of the same stuff, and so I've known Tyler for a long time outside of being teammates with him, and I feel like we get along really well to begin with. But to add him to our team, Elliott and Michael and I got along great last year with William, and obviously that hasn't changed, and it's been fun because we went from William, who's obviously extremely talented and did a great job, to another extremely talented race car driver. And when you have that and you've got 4 opinions kind of going in the same direction, and all of our crew chiefs get along well, all of our crew guys get along well. So the fact that we've got 4 teams that really kind of work in unison, I think that's something for me that's huge. It's super important. And if one of us is struggling, well, then we got 3 others that we can rely on. And I think strength in numbers is a big deal for us.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
luck this weekend.
Appreciate it.